Foreigners in Our Native Land: Historical Roots of the Mexican Americans. Edited by David J. Weber. Page 81. Lazy People of Vicious Character. Jose Maria Sanchez, 1828. Although unimpressed by the Tejanos, Sanchez also took a dim view of Anglo American frontiersmen living in Texas. Sanchez's description of Americans on the Texas frontier should be compared with Shaler's and Sage's descriptions of New Mexicans and Californians. In Villa de Austin, San Felipe de Austin, April 27th, we continued along hills without trees, the ground being wet and muddy, until we arrived at a distance of 4 or 5 leagues from the settlement of San Felipe de Austin, where we were met by Mr. Samuel Williams, Secretary of the Empresario, Mr. Stephen Austin, and we were given lodging in a house that had been prepared for the purpose. This village has been settled by Mr. Stephen Austin, a native of the United States of the North. It consists at present of 40 or 50 wooden houses on the western bank of the large river known as Rio de los Brazos de Dios. But the houses are not arranged systematically so as to form streets, but on the contrary, lie in an irregular and desultory manner. Its population is nearly 200 persons, of which only 10 are Mexicans, for the balance are all Americans from the north, with an occasional European. 2 wretched little stores supply the inhabitants of the colony. One sells only whiskey, rum, sugar, and coffee. The other, rice, flour, lard, and cheap cloth. It may seem that these items are too few for the needs of the inhabitants, but they are not, because the Americans from the north, at least the greater part of those I have seen, eat only salted meat, bread made by themselves out of cornmeal, coffee, and homemade cheese. To these the greater part of those who live in the village add strong liquor, for they are in general, in my opinion, lazy people of vicious character. Some of them cultivate their small farms by planting corn, but this task they usually entrust to their Negro slaves, whom they treat with considerable harshness. Beyond the village, in an immense stretch of land formed by rolling hills, are scattered the families brought by Stephen Austin, which today number more than 2,000 persons. The diplomatic policy of this impresario, evident in all his actions, has, one may say, lulled the authorities into a sense of security, while he works diligently for his own ends. In my judgment, the spark that will start the conflagration that will deprive us of Texas will start from this colony, all because the government does not take vigorous measures to prevent it. Perhaps it does not realize the value of what it is about to lose. May 12th. Our beast of burden, not being used to this climate, suffered a great deal because of the bad forage. For this reason, the general ordered that I should go to the Mr. Gross, an American, to buy corn, and Mr. Chobo, wishing to accompany me, we started on our mission with a corporal and 4 soldiers through plains covered with grass and flowers, but at the same time so full of water that it seemed as if we were traveling through lakes. So deep did the horses sink in the bog. At about 3 in the afternoon, we arrived at Grossy's place and secured the corn we were to take back. We asked for some food, and it was given to us in the house, consisting, as is customary among Americans, of bacon, milk, and coffee. And when we had finished, we were taken upstairs to see Mr. Gross, who was in bed and unable to move. Our visit was very short because we could not understand each other. After a short while, Mr. Gross's son came out with a doctor who appeared to be a pedant, and another young man, the son-in-law of Mr. Gross, all of them Americans, and by signs and sentences in Latin written with pencil, they carried on a conversation with us, trivial in the main, but they did not deign to offer us shelter in the house, even though they saw us camping under the trees. Later they asked us into the house for the sole purpose of showing us the wealth of Mr. Gross, and to introduce us to three dogs called Ferdinand V, Napoleon, and Bolivar. The indignation at seeing the name of the Colombian liberator thus debased caused Mr. Chobo to utter a violent oath which the impudent fellows did not understand or did not wish to understand. We returned immediately to our camp and went, so I'm flipping a few pages, to bed without supper because we could not get anything. Gross is a man of 45 or 50 years of age. He came from the United States to establish himself on the eastern bank of the Brazos River in order to avoid paying the numerous creditors that were suing him. He brought with him 116 slaves of both sexes, most of which were stolen. These wretched slaves are the ones who cultivate the corn and cotton, both of which yield copious crops to Mr. Gross. Likewise, he has a great many head of cattle, innumerable hogs, and a great number of horses. But he is a man who does not enjoy his wealth because he is extremely stingy, and he treats his slaves with great cruelty. June 2nd. After the rays of the sun had found their way through the thick woods of Texas, we started again, and after crossing the Neches, whose flood waters were beginning to subside, we traveled over wooded and rolling country, troubled by the mosquitoes and the burning thirst occasioned by the excessive heat. We came across a poorhouse occupied by the two children, 10 or 11 years old, pale and dirty, signs that plainly indicated the poverty of this family of solitary Americans. We heard that the mother was in Nacogdoches. How strong are these people from the north? We halted at about 3 in the afternoon on the western bank of the Angelina River at the house of a poor American who treated us with considerable courtesy, a very rare thing among individuals of this nationality.